Hi, and welcome back. So my name's Pam Larry, and I talk about a variety of things. And today I want to talk about and do an introduction to a playlist that I'm going to entitle The Care and Feeding of Activists. I didn't come to the activist world until 2011. I had done a few marches, and I'd stand on corners from time to time, waving a little sign, and I thought, I was really proud of myself for doing that, But really, that does stuff in the short term, and if you do it on a consistent basis and you're able to get a lot of people to do it, then it's a very effective means of activism. But the truth is, real activism is not very glamorous. A lot of it's behind the scenes or just a lot of slogging work. Anyway, that's one of the things that I've learned. I've learned that there's two kinds of activists running around out there, and I'm going to have to mostly speak from the food, justice issue perspective, because that's what I've been involved with. However, I have talked to people in other movements who notice the same kinds of things. So although, keeping in mind that this is mostly about food, that there seems to be a general tendency for many of these situations to crop up there too. There are so the two kinds of activists that I'd like to talk about. The first one is the paid activist, and they are usually, or they are always connected with one of the larger organizations, and the larger organizations, of which there are most of them are actually mostly just online in the food group, in the food activism area. But there are a couple that do boots on the ground stuff. They hire, because they have to, they hire usually a national coordinator or two, and then they usually hire smaller numbers of regional coordinators. And these folks need to be hired because they're spending full time on their jobs. And, people have to live, and particularly if they're young, which is oftentimes the only people that these organizations can hire because they are willing to work for a lot less money than the organizations have. They're young, and so they need a way to support themselves somehow. They usually are very raggle-taggle and do a lot of, they're great. I've loved working with them. They're very inspiring and very organized, and many of them have been trained how to do this work effectively, and they've been great. The kind of activist I am, though, and I just wanted to mention, those folks get into that because they genuinely care about the environment, or whether it's fracking or, climate change or food issues or whatever it is they end up working on. So the second type of activist that I'd like to talk about is the volunteer. So the volunteer activists, I've noticed, they come to this because they care. Either something has happened in their family, like with the food issue, maybe they have a child that's got a really bad allergy or has symptoms of autism or, other kinds of things going on physically, maybe a gluten intolerance or, acne or asthma or wherever. And they do stuff, they do research online, and they find out that maybe it has something to do with the food. They don't know. So they try. This is how many people come to the food movement. They change their family's diet, and lo and behold, their child gets better, and they get outraged. And understandably so, because they have trusted in, the large, corporate agencies like the American Dietetics Association or, in the FDA. They're not an organization, they're an agency, but, they've trusted the government, and they've trusted these large organizations that are funded oftentimes, as a little side note, by big pharmaceuticals or big food, but that's another video. And they're outraged. They get so outraged that they decide that they have to do something. They don't wait to get paid because they know that the money isn't out there. They just feel this so strongly, and that if their child has been harmed, how many other children are being harmed because of this? And some of those people are the March Against Monsanto people in the food movement. That was started by a mom who was outraged after Prop 37, the ballot initiative to label genetically engineered foods in California. And likewise, Moms Across America is an amazing organization that's organizing moms across the country and actually around the world to fight toxic localities and communities. She also started, got the inspiration the night of Prop 37. So as just a little side note, sometimes you might lose a short-term battle, but lots of great stuff comes out of it. At any rate, so what I've noticed, and I would consider myself, I wasn't motivated by that. I just have a very strong internal ethical system around corporate control of the planet and seeing corporate control of food. And in case you've never heard this, Henry Kissinger once said, when you control the food, you control the people. It was part of a larger quote, but that has stayed with me. And so anyway, much of our activism, again, is fueled from anger. And in my journey through life and all of the inner growth work I've done, I have found that usually anger comes from fear of some sort. Whether it's, like in my case, it's fear of corporate control. It's fear of what's going to happen to the planet. It's fear of, what's going to happen to the seed supply. All these topics, we can talk about at various times. What's going to, where are my grandchildren? What's going to happen to my grandchildren's food supply? Is this going to be used as a tool for war, which it kind of has been, but that's another topic again. So comes from fear. Okay, but another thing I've noticed is that once you start down what I call the rabbit hole, and you start reading and learning more, you get increasingly outraged when you find out even more to back up what you've intuitively known, and you find out stuff that you never even thought possible. Like, I knew that there was collusion between big ag and big chemical companies and our local agencies, but I had no idea until a WikiLeaks cable that our government actually uses genetically engineered crops as a political tool abroad. It's just, that's its own rabbit hole in and of itself. But suffice it to say, reading all this stuff, talking to people, listening to people, the more entrenched you get, the more fear actually comes up. And the more fear, what starts to happen is there's this thought pattern that starts to develop. And the more you dig into it and the more you find out, it feeds on the rage, which compels you to do more, but also compels you to do more, which takes up more of your time, which then pulls you away from life-giving things, things that bring you joy. Many advocates I know that have worked on political campaigns, which is most of the people that I've been working with to date, there's a campaign. You've got a year and a half. There's a ton of work to get done when you've got a grassroots group that doesn't have very much funding. It's all about the labor and the commitment of the people, and it's a lot of work. And particularly if you're the main organizer, like this one woman, I won't name her because I haven't asked her permission, but she started after working full time on labeling genetically engineered food. She immediately jumped in to try to get her county to create a GMO-free growing zone. So she kept her 60 to 80 hour work week going with intense pressure, intense stress, intense fear going for, the election was in 2016. So she basically was living that life for 5 years. She and a couple of other people that I know got cancer. She's okay. She's going to be fine. She's doing really well. But I found many people got completely burned out. Many people have disappeared just because of the work was so intense and overwhelming, and we didn't do enough to take care of ourselves. Many people's families have suffered. During Prop 37, we talked about maybe having, support calls for spouses of people working on the campaign. I mean, it really puts a stress on the family. And I get so sad when I read some media reports about, activists being crazy people, and, it's just not the case. These are caring, loving people who are willing to sacrifice themselves and sometimes their families for a little while to do something that they believe in really strongly for the future. So I myself got burned out. I kept working and was just exhausted, but kept pushing myself until last year in 2016 when I literally had a difficult time moving. I was depressed. Physically, I fell apart. And I realized that I needed to find something to pull me out of it. So I'm encouraging activists to take care of ourselves. So this will be a series. I'll start it off by just sharing with you some of the things that I've learned I have to do. Number one is to stop at the end of the day. It's very easy to, go through your emails one more time to make sure that you're answering a volunteer or somebody who you're trying to connect with. It's really easy to want to post that one more thing on social media to get the news out there, or to create that email blast, or the whatevers. Just pick a time during the, of the day and just commit to stopping. And if for some reason you find out that you're going to have something in the evening, because many events are in the evening, take time during the middle of the day. And for heaven's sake, please take at least one full day where you don't turn on your computer, you don't turn on your cell phone and go to Facebook, or one of your social media places, and you just unplug completely, because it really, really matters. It matters for your health. And why? I've been, in my personal journey, I've been discovering all this amazing stuff that has really helped me heal. So last fall, I literally had a hard time moving. Today, I ran up 4 flights of stairs, and not ran, but pretty heavy, pretty fast clip, carrying about, all this equipment. I'm actually videotaping this at my friend's office. And I made it to the top, and I was hardly huffing and puffing at all. Last year, when I entered the same building, I couldn't even do 1 flight of stairs. I'm telling you, I had no energy left and felt like my life force was eking out of me. So anyway, I found this really great and fascinating guy whose name is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I'll link to his website in below. He is a medical person, and he has studied the body and hormones and spirituality, a ton, and is finding a way to bridge mysticism with health and medicine and biology. And one of the things that he talks about is that our brains create these neural paths, and that if we want to change ourselves and heal, that's the place to start. And it's not like it's an overnight thing. It takes a lot of work. We get in these grooves where we're just, we think something, which then leads to something else, which then causes an emotional reaction. And if we start down that path, we can get lost in it. The trick is to realize we're in the path, to stop it, to breathe deeply, and then to think of something new. What do we want? How do we want this to be? So, I've been doing the work now since last November, and I've noticed tremendous change in my emotional well-being, in my mental state, and in my body. And I highly encourage activists to either read up on some of the stuff that he talks about, or find somebody else. But the big message is to find something that you think is going to work for you, that will help you remember the joy in life. It's very easy to fall into despair when looking into the eye of the zombie apocalypse every day. The zombie apocalypse being anything that's going to ruin the world that we zombies are unconsciously co-creating. So I'm just urging people as a first step to stop, do a few of the things that I talked about, previously in this video. Just take a little break every week, take a little break every day, go and hug your kids. One of the things I found out is that hugging actually releases more oxytocin, which reduces stress levels, which then the stress hormones, when they're reduced, help us to feel better and not get sick as much. So this is just part 1, and I'll be bringing forward, deeper talks about Dr. Joe and his work, and then, but also just other kinds of things that I've noticed going on in the activist world, things that I wish would be different, things that I so admire. And anyway, that's it for now. And I hope you have a grand day, and thanks for stopping by. And if you'd like to keep in touch and, find out when I'm posting again, whether it's about activism or science or food or my hair, then please click on the subscribe button below and we can stay in touch. Bye.